Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Defending the Kingdom. And we have got a special show for you today. Mitch Holthus with you, the voice of the Chiefs, along with my man, the shop, the barbershop, the spider, 10-year NFL veteran, Shawn Barber. Shawn, it's good to see you. We continue to pray and lift people up and our families during this. We're getting closer, buddy. We're getting closer, getting into clear. But we want to spend some time today talking defense, and to me, the way the Chiefs get better in 2020.
Yes, everybody always talks about how explosive the Chiefs begin and start with Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, but it's the defense. Sometimes one of the untold aspects about this organization, this team, that has allowed them to reach championship status. The turning from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense in one offseason. Coach Spags came in, dropped the philosophy, and got buy-in from a group of men who wanted to take on the entire world. It was Kansas City's defense versus the world. How to become a serious contender on the stage of the stage of the NFL when it comes to playing defensive football.
Let me give one example of the season. I'll get your reaction, and then we're going to show you a graphic which illustrates this point. Denver game last year. Pat goes down with the dislocated knee. Now, that stadium we know can be awesome. They're great fans. But they're sick of losing to the Chiefs. They'd lost 7 straight times, but they're going, wait a minute. Mahomes is out. This is a one-score game. Flacco's getting sacked about every time. But one play, Cortland Sutton gets behind the defense or a scoop and score, and all of a sudden it's tied at 13. Then what happens? Anthony Hitchens comes through on a blitz, sacks Flacco, ball comes out. Ragland picks it up. Chiefs score. Now 13-6 becomes 20-6. And you could feel, you were down on that field, you could feel the oxygen come out of every one of those fans going, it ain't going to be today either. So that one single defensive play flipped that whole game.
Yeah, there's a thing, pressure bust pipes. There's 2 things that pressure does. It either creates a diamond, right? You put a lot of pressure on a piece of coal, you create a diamond, or it busts pipes. And what we've seen with the Kansas City Chiefs defense is it's created some diamonds. We had some guys, some players with some skills kind of in the rough. We had a great leadership piece in Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark, but we needed these young guys to be able to play above their head, play like veterans, play like they had years under their belts. And what we've seen is the pressure we put on our defense has in turn put pressure on the opposing offense. They've had to try to make plays to stay up with the high-powered offense we have here. And sometimes we've been able to take advantage of that and make them pay really big with a turnover, a big fumble, a scoop and score. You talked about the Denver game, but we can go back even further to the Detroit game with the scoop and score for their touchdown turns to our touchdown, the swing of momentum in that game, the end of the Minnesota Vikings game, the comeback against the Texans in the playoff, and then the Super Bowl. All of those games were spurred by a key defensive turnover or a great big play made by our defensive unit.
I think, too, of Thornhill's pick 6 against the Raiders late in the year. Okay, here's a graphic to show what we're talking about. Look at these numbers. This is the 7 years of Andy Reid's tenure as head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. 28 times, Barbershop, the Chiefs have scored on defense in that 7 years. The record in those games, Kansas City is 25-3. And if you can pick up 1 or 2 of these defensive plays, explosive plays, it can mean all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it also affects the like you said, 25 wins have accounted from those kind of turnovers. But let's think how many more wins where a big defensive play might not have went for a score. Just change the field position. Instead of the other team in field goal range, we turn them over so we keep points off the board. We take a possession, we intercept it and put our offense in the red zone. 2 or 3 plays later, Pat Mahomes is scoring. So it's so many games you can probably turn and look at how many defensive plays led to Chiefs points immediately. And I bet that number even gets higher than 25 over Andy's last 7 years when you talk about how many impactful plays on the defensive side of the ball directly led to a Kansas City Chiefs victory.
Yeah, I think of the 4 picks in the Mexico City game against the Chargers. And, of course, without the stop, there is no wasp. If the Chiefs don't get an initial stop in Super Bowl 54, and it was stop, score, stop, score. Okay, so it's why I get excited when I look at this draft class. And I'm just going to put up Willie Gay Jr. here. When you see him, we talked about him being DJ last week. I get a little Derek Johnson feel to him. You look at his 52-yard interception against Kentucky, you get into a thought here. You played this position. When you put a guy in the middle of your defense that can make those kind of explosive plays like a Tyreek Hill play on defense, what does it mean?
Man, he's exciting. He's an impact player. He's a guy who's coming in day one is going to make an impact in some phase, in some level of the defense. Having a guy his size with that type of speed and his instincts to be around the ball, and he's a physical player. Like I said, man, he's a hammer. He's not a nail. He doesn't take any hits. He delivers all the blows all the time. And that type of mentality is rare, especially when you mix it with his skill set as far as his speed, his covering techniques, and his overall ability to be an impact player. So you know what Coach Spags loves to do, Andy Reid loves to do on defense? They love to get a group of playmakers. Making plays is contagious. Now, not everybody has the hands to actually make a pick. Not everybody has the speed to run it back for a touchdown. But if you look through our defense, we have some really unique playmakers, even starting on the front line with Frank Clark. Then you talk about now Willie Gay, Anthony Hitchens in the back end with Tyrann Mathieu. These are guys that you're going to start trying to see offenses trying to avoid. How can I throw the ball and not be around any of these playmakers? Because I know that if I throw it a little bit off, it can be a pick six. It can be an interception. It can be a turnover. So that's the one thing we talk about, putting that pressure on the opponent's offense. Just having playmakers at all three levels now is going to make it very tough for offenses preparing for the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Well, we're going to take DK up a notch right here because you mentioned Tyrann Mathieu. Hey, let's bring in the Kingdom landlord himself to talk about this very topic. And now, what a treat, because we get joined by the landlord. Hope he paid the rent, because he is here with us now. The landlord, of course, Tyrann Mathieu, leader for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, world champion Kansas City Chiefs defense. And first of all, it is just awesome to see you. I can't wait till I get to see you in person. But,
good to see you.
How's your crew doing? I know you got little ones, you got little ones, bigger little ones.
Nah, we're doing well, man. We're smiling, trying to make the best of it, trying to stay positive, doing our best to think about others that don't necessarily have what we have. So for us, it's being all about just staying close, trying our best to keep a positive spirit.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I want to ask you, Shop and I. Our focus this week has been on the defense. How can it take another level? Where's the next jump? Where does it go? And I want to ask you, just individually and as a defense overall, what's the encore and how do you get better in 2020?
Yeah, I think really, I thought we played well, but I didn't think once I really reflect on the season, I realized that we probably didn't play half to our level. And we could have had a lot more production at the ball. I know myself, especially the leader, right? I dropped, 8 interceptions, So you got to make those plays. I think those plays turn into scoring opportunities, not only for the offense, but sometimes the defense can get in the end zone. Another thing, I thought is that, we added some real speed, in the draft, not only at the linebacker position, but if you really look at some of our late picks in the later rounds, those guys can tackle. Those guys got some size on them. But I think most importantly, they got speed. I think when you're able to add speed, you're able to truly deceive the offense. You realize that you're not going to give up a ton of big plays, chunk plays. You got guys that can really run down the field. And it allow guys like me to kind of hunt the intermediate levels. We picked up the guy, Willie Gay Jr. I think he's going to be big for us. I think he's going to be an extension of me, on the football field. And as long as you got guys like that, I think, and you can always go, in the right direction.
I know Coach Spags is going to do his part of making sure that Willie Gay understands the ABCs of the defense. I had a chance to play under Coach Spags, and I know when he says A1, B2, C3, and ask you in what order those things need to be repeated, you got to repeat them back the exact way, right? A linebacker has to cover seam to the flat, seam through the hook to the flat. He speaks in a certain way, and he wants those guys to repeat that exact language back to him so he knows that everybody's on the same page. And that's the one thing we talk about is communication, how to take something from being a great defense to an elite defense. I think it begins with the communication level, and you've been key in that ever since day one getting here, demanding the guys continue to communicate with one another. Whether it's a good play or a bad play, the communication level can always pick up to make it an elite defense.
Absolutely. And I think, as a leader, you take great pride in communicating with your teammates, not only off the field, but on the field especially. We talk through certain concepts. Like I tell my DBs, it's important. You know how volleyball girls huddle up, after the set? I think we should do that as a defense. Like DBs, we should huddle up. Hey, what just happened? Because that play comes up the next series. I always go back to the Super Bowl, the interception that Kendall Fuller made. Had we not made that communication, he wouldn't have made that play. And I think you have to require that every play. You can't do it. You're not perfect. None of us is. But I think that's the standard. And once everybody can kind of accept that, like you mentioned, I think it'll naturally take your defense to an elite level consistently.
Man, that's awesome. And we see you try to do that. But, the offense gets the huddle. Why don't you guys? All right. Now, you've been a champion now at every level. That's what's cool. But I want to ask you, when you get a team that has the potential to attack in all three phases, we know what the offense can do. You've already alluded that next, and that's kind of our thesis, the next step for the defense is to be this weapon, right?
Yeah.
When you get a team that keeps putting pressure on the opponent offensively and defensively and with special teams, how devastating that can be to an opponent.
It can crush a lot of opponents. I think, most guys don't want to play 4 quarters, especially with a good football team, especially a team that's good in all 3 phases. And I think that's the mission that we're on collectively. I think the offense does a good job of really, playing to their capabilities, right? And I think the other units have that potential. And as long as the offense continue to push us and as long as I continue to push guys around me, I think collectively we can all be this explosive team, this team that, that most teams don't want to play. And so I think that's the goal for us. That's the ambition, really. And that's the motivation.
Yeah. When we look at a defense has been as good as the defense ended up last year, and like you say, the one thing that was missing from last year, I think, and everybody would admit, is that consistency, right?
Yeah.
The slow start, but the communication level was there. You could tell by your demeanor after some of the games, whether it was a win or loss, you were coming out excited about the way your guys were communicating on the back end. Yeah. And sometimes that was confusing for the media because they said, man, the team gave up 30 points. Well, Tyron's acting like it was a shutout. Well, defensively, that communication level was on an all-time high. So I could see how that was growing and rolling. You felt that defensive momentum hitting. And then after that Tennessee game, you was like, man, we got all the pieces all apart. Now it's time for us just to start firing on all levels and kind of working off each other's, the pass rush and the back end. They're like a yin and yang, right? Getting to the quarterback and covering. It's a hand-in-hand type thing. You got to mesh together. And so the way I see this defense continuing to go, like you're saying, putting some top-end speed on the cornerback level to allow you to free up and roam that middle is just going to add a whole different dimension to what Coach Spags was doing with our defensive back end. And that's exciting for the Kingdom to see.
Yeah.
Hey, your heart is as good as your game. We're going to let you go, but before we do, you got something really cool coming up next week that we all want to participate in. Fill us in. I know you don't get the softball game this year, right? But you got something really neat next week.
Yeah, so May 7th, next Thursday, I'll be partnering with Sports Radio 610 here in Kansas City. And we're going to try our best to really raise as much money to kind of impact the people of Kansas City. So the beneficiaries of this will be Hope House, Restart, and the BMA Foundation. I think those 3 programs do a great job. I think they reflect, really what I want to do in the community. And so I'm really excited, about the silent auction. I think that's going to be, something big where fans could come in and support, teammates could come in and support, buy things, knowing that it's going directly to those Kansas City beneficiaries. So I'm excited about it. If anybody has any more questions, information, they want to know anything, just visit tyronmatthew.org. and they can get all the information. But just excited, man, that I have the platform to be able to really reach people and try my best to help people. And I think that's important. I think it's important for us to just always think about, others.
Well, we'll jump in there and help you all we can.
Thank
Shop,
you.
I know you played 10 years in this league. When you see a guy like this do what he does, he's carrying on the legacy of this league, brother.
Man, it was amazing because when I got to Kansas City, it was part of our contract to do things in the community. And to see guys now, like on Tyron's level, that are doing it just from their heart. It's not a contractual agreement. He's doing it because he has a love for the city, a love for community. He loves helping others. And seeing as a player not being forced to do that, but it's doing it out of the genuine, the sincerity in their heart, man, that brings me back to a time when guys were about guys, man. Ball is about ball. A game respects game. Tyron, you're doing it on an amazing level. You keep leading them guys on and off the field, doing great things with your family, man. Continue to be a leader in this community.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No doubt, brother.
Ty, thanks for being with us.
Appreciate it, Mitch.
God bless you, man. And
Thank you. God bless.
Take
care.
All right. Wow. So, Shop, what a great pickup to get that guy, not only on our team to make this football plays, but the way he's wired, he just huge impact by Tyrann Mathieu in this community and throughout the kingdom.
Man, it took me 10 seasons and after I retired to realize what was important to me about football. And it's the ties that people have between their faith and their family and how football ties it all together. It's such a unique, time that we're going through now, but to have somebody with that kind of heart for Kansas City, and he's only been here 1 year. And that's how you know it's not something that's superficial. It's just who he is. He has a love and a passion for our community. So as much as we can, I think we should definitely reach our arms and grasp and wrap around the phone-a-thon he's doing next Thursday, man. If we can encourage all of our listeners to tune in to 610 and get a part of that telethon to raise as much money as possible for the Tyrann Mathieu Foundation, that would be very, very important to us.
Yeah, it's amazing. The thing, it's only going to be my 27th year in the league, but what I'm learning is who's real. That dude is real.
Yes,
like what you see from him is what you get. Like that's I appreciate about him. But our theme here has been to get explosive on defense. I just think it's the next step for this team that when all of a sudden they get one or two scores, a scoop and score, a pick six, and they're athletic. And you mentioned earlier in this podcast at all three levels, I'm just going to throw out L'Jarius Sneed too. The kid picked up from Louisiana Tech who played safety and corner there, but a 41-inch vertical, 4.37. But there's dudes that can jump and run, but don't have any ball skills. I mean, we've had guys like that, right? This guy had 8 picks for them, 28 passes broken up, but he's a guy too that has the ability to turn a play going the other way. I mean, it just devastates a team when all of a sudden, not only do I lose possession, you brought up early in the podcast the 100-yard fumble return against Detroit. That's a 14-point swing in a 4-point game. I mean, if that's the next step for this team, who knows where it can go? And with only one team getting a bye, only one team is going to get the 1 seed, obviously, but there's no 2 seed getting a bye this year, then that could be the difference of maybe getting a 1 seed.
You said it exactly. Only one team is getting a bye, so the slow rolling into the season, I think everybody knows that there's going to be 3 or 4 teams expected to be in it at the end when it comes to the AFC. Now, which team can play the best, the most consistent for the entire season is going to deserve that 1 seed. In the past, it's been, hey, as long as you can finish strong, finish the season on a roll, you want to make sure that you have some momentum late in the year. Get the bye if you can, but it's more about playing good football at the end. I think this might be the first season where the season as a whole, because it's only that one bye, it's going to be one team that gets the advantage of that bye week. And you know how important it is after a 17-week season to take 1 week to watch the other league, watch the other guys battle, avoid injury 1 more week, and then for having some team come to your house for the AFC Championship game. I think that our target, our focus is going to be the number 1 seed all year long, starting fast, starting focused. And to do that, the defense needs to be what we said today, explosive.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being with us. Take care of that family. Keep rolling with your one-room schoolhouse there at Barbershop University. So this is fun. I look at these guys that we drafted and maybe jump into another level and to have Tyrann with us. You get excited, man, what this season could be.
Sky's the limit. Sky's the limit, baby.
All right, brother. Let's run it back. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Defending the Kingdom.
This is the Chiefs official podcast network.